body. So these muscles that we get injured in or get tightness, so the quads do a lot of work, the glutes do a lot of work as you push down. Then you have the hamstrings that work a lot to lengthen when you come up. So these three muscle groups, calves as well, they get quite tight because when we push down, we should be going in our dorsiflexion. But a lot of the time, some of us toe point down, calves get kind of tense and they tighten up as well. And if you think of your body, it's a chain, like one muscle affects the next muscle. So if one muscle is tight, down the chain, down the kinetic chain, so think about your Achilles tendon being tight or your calves being tight. If they're tight, they're going to pull on the next, so they're tight and they're scrunched up. They're going to pull on the next muscle group that's going to start to get tight, it's going to pull in the low back, that's going to get tight, and everything through the chain is going to get tight. So I always say work from the feet up when you want to get kind of mobility in the body or flexibility in the body. So I'm going to go from the ground up. So we're going to stretch out our plantar fascia, or the soles of our feet. Get tight because your feet are in those shoes the whole time. Generally, you don't have much movement for your toes or your feet to move, and they're just in that same repetitive position for hours on end without getting movement. So the soles of the feet, the fascial tissues on the soles of the feet get tight. So you're going to curl all 10 toes under. You want to start with your sit bones dropping onto your heels. So your bum basically on your heels. And your rib cage sinking in, shoulders over your hips. And you don't want to lean forward. You want to keep your shoulders over your hips, your sit bones on your heels. And pretty quickly, you're going to feel the soles of the feet and the balls of the feet really start to scream at you. But this one is great. And I recommend if you're coming to this one, you sit 30 to 60 seconds in it. Now it can get quite intense. The sensation, if you were doing it right now, you'd probably be nearly out of it at this stage. It can get really intense, but that's amazing to open the feet. And movement starts at the feet. Movement starts at the ground up. So that's number one. I would do this to open my feet, come forward. Instead of curling the toes, I flatten the feet. So toenail size of the feet down. Same starting position, shoulders over the hips. Roll the shoulders back. We're going to start to open the front of the ankles and the shins. You're going to lift your knees, your fingertips are supporting you, and you're going to feel a big stretch across the tibialis, across the front of your shin bone. So knees elevated, shoulders roll back. Try to again hold this one. I would suggest, keep your ribs in. I would suggest again 30 seconds, 60 seconds, longer if you can. And pretty quickly, this one is one of those ones that start to scream at you. Our shins are so tight and we don't even know it. So shins and ankles get that big stretch out here. Okay, so then roll it down. So that's our feet, the lower soles of the feet, our ankles and our shins. Stretching the calves, I would use the book or the blocks or just a step or something that you've got to elevate yourself. And you're going to have that there. Take your right foot onto it and you're going to slide the toe mounts to the front of the toes to the front edge of it. And then see, can you sink the heel down? Lovely. So you're getting the toes on the top and the heels down. And you're literally going to step the left foot forward onto the other side. So this right leg is the one that's getting stretched. Left foot is on the book with the block, and you're bending that knee. And you can stay slightly flexed forward, that's totally fine. You're pushing down through the heel, your toes are pressing down. And if you want to go a little bit deeper into it, you start to flex. So you're flexing at the hip. It's going to increase the stretch at the back of the knee to the calf. And if you want to go even more, you just fold down. But again, this depends on where you have mobility and stretch. So up here is totally fine. You can let the hands rest on the hip or the thigh, and then just let that stretch out. Nice and gently release. And again, that gets quite intense quite quickly. You've two sides of your body, so do both sides. So you can come back into the opposite side, and same thing. So So you get nice and stable. You push down to the heel, you start to bend. The more you bend, the more sensation, the more stretch you're going to feel there. And again, I'd hold that one for 30 seconds. And just again, breath can help you distract if the body or the mind is trying to talk you out of these poses, which it will. And then you just gently come up. Lovely. So pop them out of the way. Another stretch for the front of the shins is going to be same position. You're going to put the right foot forward. You just start to bend. So the left foot is just behind and legs are hip distance. And you're just going to start to hinge at the hips. So you send your hips back, you send your left knee forwards, and you're going to feel the front of the shin start to open up a little bit. And again, you swap that over and you'll do it on the opposite sides. And all of these I would recommend holding for like 30 to 60 seconds. You could do them 2 or 3 times, or you could just do one round of all of them. And then slowly coming up. So I'm going to use this box, but you can use anything that's kind of elevated. So your bed, the side of your bed can be a good one. Something, you don't want it too high, so bed height, the seat of a chair as well as a good one, or your couch. So this one is going to get our quadriceps. It's going to get the front of the quads, which this is probably one of our areas that we want to target the most, that gets tight the most. So you're going to start by kneeling. Take the left or right toes, it doesn't matter, up onto the bed, so on the top of the bed, and just let that knee rest down. And you're going to step your right foot forward. So when you're in this position, when you're kind of leaning forward, you're not going to feel the stretch. You're going to want to start to come up. So hands onto thigh, lift your chest, and the more you go back in space, so the more you bring yourself back towards the bed, the more stretch you're going to feel here. If you could get your bum back against the whatever you're using, your hands could come on here as well as a little bit of support. Your bum slides behind your heel. And you can see that already that is getting a big stretch out there. Relax everything else. This right foot's just support. And I just hold that and breathe. And you'll really feel this muscle start to open. And the more you can just come into the breath, I think our breath is our greatest tool in life. So if you can think about the breath, when your breath is calm and steady, it sends signals from your brain to the rest of your body that it can relax. So when your breath is it's getting a bit like panicked and stuff, it sends signals to the body to say, I'm under attack, and your body then goes into fight and flight. It goes right into the sympathetic nervous system. You're looking to bring it down into the parasympathetic. So slow, steady breaths send signals to these muscles that, oh, I'm okay. And then they start to relax rather than tense into trying to fight what's happening. So again, that's what I was holding for quite a while. Just slowly come out and then slide the foot down. And you can swap that over to the opposite side. So I am not going to wait on this side for too long, just to get on with the rest of the session. So again, you're bringing the chest back, your bum is going back towards whatever you've got the foot resting on, and you're getting the front of the quads. So the front of the quads are getting a big, big stretch here. And slowly come out. So we're going to try and get what we call our psoas muscle, a muscle from the lower back that wraps through the hips and wraps down to the knees. The only muscle that goes through 2 joints, and that is a hip flexor. So that muscle does this action of flexing. So that is quite repetitive in our cycling. So this is a really good stretch for it. You come into a lunge. So a low lunge position, back hip over knee, front knee over ankle, and you just want to notice where your pelvis is. So you want to tuck your tail under. The more you tuck your tail under, the more this back hip starts to open. So relax your shoulders. And then the left hand, so the back foot, the same hand with that one, is going to go overhead. And as that goes overhead, you reach the right fingertips down towards the ground. And that just allows then the fascial tissues, that chain of fascial tissues, to stretch. And this psoas muscle that wraps around your hip is getting a big stretch. So our hip flexor. And then you come back to center. And you swap it. Same thing opposite side. Make sure you get the tuck of the tail. So if your bum's out like this and your chest is forward, you're not going to get the stretch in the hip flexor. So you want to tuck your tail. You want to stand nice and tall. And then the right arm reaches overhead. Left finger is reaching down just to intensify. And then nice and slow, come back. So that's the quads. That was the hip flexor, the psoas muscle that wraps through. We're going to get our glutes. Again, another one of our powerhouse. So I think we're all probably familiar with pigeon pose. We're going to do it on our bed, on our chair, on our elevated surface. Because a lot of us don't have that external rotation. So with this pose, we're going to get the outside of the glute max and the glute med. You're going to take your foot, one leg, up onto your elevated surface. And you're going to heel toe out, so if it's your right foot, send the ankle out to the left, and just get the shin bone parallel with the front of the bed. Hands come down, and you start to heel toe that back foot back. And what this is allowing now is external rotation of this thigh, and that's then going to start to open up the glute. If this can already feel quite intense for some people, external rotation of the hip is hard. If that feels okay, you want to go further, you start to bend your back. And then you should feel it all here, all on the outside of the glute. Big open and big release. Again, if that feels okay, you could even bring it to the ground. So some people have a little bit more flexibility, you can do it on the mat. So just getting a little bit more into it. You send your left hip back, same position, right shin forward, and then you just fold over. And that's getting a big stretch around here. And opening all these tissues is really going to open that back chain of the body, and that's going to allow you to really create power in your cycling. So when you can open the back chain of the body and the front chain, you're going to get full hip flexion, full hip extension. So you're going to be able to really come with power down instead of coming from halfway and just pushing like this. So if you think about the range of motion increasing, power will increase. And then you can add on strength at a different stage. And last little thing you can do is a little sequence that kind of adds in 2 or 3 of those poses together. So you can come to seated. Your legs are going to go a little bit wider than your hips. So you're seated. Legs a little bit wider than your hips. I'd only do this if you get proficient at the other ones. So this is kind of a little sequence that you can put together that you could do like maybe for 5 minutes before you even go out and cycle. So both knees are going to fall to the right. You're external rotating, you're internal your hips. Internally rotating your hips. And then the hand comes down behind you. You can lift the hips up. And then the back leg, so this is open in the front hip, so open in the hip flexor. Back leg steps forwards. And you can find that psoas stretch. So you're in your lunge and you're arcing forward. You come back. You can do it on the other side. So 2 knees fall to the left. You're going to push your hips forward. So that's going to open the front of the hips. Your back foot is going to swing around. And you're going to find that lunge. And eventually it gets kind of smooth. So you're kind of just moving. You're doing like this. And then back to center, coming around, stepping it forward, and arcing around. So they're all little things you can do. And last thing, the myofascial release ball. These are really good to release the fascia of your feet, so you can just roll them on your feet. There's lots of different things you can do with these. You can also get the glutes, so when there's a lot of tightness around the tissues of the glutes, you just let the ball come onto any spot where your bum is, cross the leg, the opposite leg over, and then just roll around. And if you find a point of tension, kind of stop there, put pressure on it, breathe, and then roll and release again. And that ball can be used anywhere. There's no right or wrong with myofascial release really. So it's just finding a tender spot and rolling into it. Just kind of mushing up the fascial tissues that get tight. You can do it at the back of your calf. Same thing, put it behind one of your calves, bend the opposite knee, and you're just rolling up and down. So I lift my bum so I can get more pressure on it. And again, if you have tightness around the shoulders, Just rolling it out, you can feel real nice. It's like a self-massage. Okay, so that's kind of it for tonight.